Okay.
Too bright. I'm too bright, my friend. Oh, yes, we are live. I'm here with my old friend, my young and old, young yet old friend Brandon.
Yes, I have come back. I think the last time I was here, I was it what was it like? Feel like it might have been
September?
September or
September, yeah.
yeah,
The leaves were changing color. Now it's snowy and cold.
mushy.
Ugh, don't remind me. I I'm sorry, multitasking here. I bike to work, as you know, as you all know,
Uh-huh.
for 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, and it's slushy, icy, and there like these built up like compressed snow patches that are intermittent, and you never know when you're going to hit one, and it's very nerve-wracking.
Hmm.
So, excuse me while I multitask here. I've marked my calendar. I've got an exciting guest tomorrow. I've got a bunch of guests tomorrow,
Mm-hmm. I'm
and
looking
so
forward to that.
I just wanted
I'm
to
sure we all are.
so yeah, this guy Phil Gonzalez, he's hilarious. He does a lot of
Mm-hmm.
comments on my episodes recently, and he's been watching burning through at 2x speed, watching a lot of my interviews and making funny jokes, funny comments. So it's kind of funny. So I said, "Hey, come on, let's chat on a live stream." So we're gonna go on a live stream tomorrow. So it should be fun just to chat to him. I'm assuming he's Catholic because he's watching all my Catholic content, but we'll find out tomorrow. So what is up with you, my friend?
Well,
How was your
I,
Christmas?
I my Christmas was pretty good, pretty good. I mean, I went to mass, of course, and
Nice.
and it was good. It was good. What about you?
Quiet. I always have very quiet high holidays or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah.
Christmas, Easter, whatever. It's not. I don't really enjoy the big holidays. I prefer just the regular days. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit chaotic. But we just try to keep calm, have fun, but not do anything too exciting. Try not to eat too much.
Oh yeah, it was the same here then. It was the same here. New Year's was probably a bit more like more family coming over and whatnot. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was a bit odd though because New Year's celebration it was on the day before New Year's Eve, but
Uh,
I didn't ask any questions on why that was, but a funny detail.
Hey, my friend Phil is in the live chat. He says sounds fun. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him. I hope people will tune in 5 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Standard Time. Nice to see you, Phil. He's just a funny, silly guy. So
Hmm.
yeah, what's been going on in terms of since we talked in September? I can't remember what the last thing is we talked about, but probably
I don't know. I can't
some
remember. I
Catholic
think it's
content. Catholic content. There's been a lot of
been a
drama. There's been a lot of
while.
drama since we spoke. There was drama about the whole blessing for the
Oh yeah,
LGBTQ couples or whatever.
yeah.
What did you make of all that?
That's definitely a messy situation. I mean, I know like people like Michael Lofton and those guys who have been defending Pope Francis have always been trying to clarify that he's talking about blessing the persons and not the union itself.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'm not sure if it was today, but I just saw the article today that Pope Francis actually came out and clarified that that is what he meant. It was the
Ah.
people and not the union. So
Ah.
I can send you the article too, but it's I have to look more into it, but it seems like he clarified it himself. So I think that those people who were claiming he was blessing the union, I don't necessarily think they're going to necessarily retract those statements now that he's clarified, but they tend to do that when it comes to stuff like that.
There's an expression, haters gonna hate.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been listening. My Australian friend Matthew, shout out to you, Matthew. He's been sending me a bunch of Tupac videos. So I've been listening to the music of
Hmm.
Tupac. Yeah, I'm really getting into it. I really love it. Have you ever listened to that hip hop rap stuff?
Uh, Tupac. I did listen to his one song, which is kind of ironic because of the subject. I'm pretty sure he wrote a song, "Hail Mary."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that I like that song, but I've never actually gone down that rabbit hole of like actually listening to himself his stuff thoroughly.
yeah.
I could do that sometime, but I might have mentioned like when it comes to music, like I'm really not so expanded when it comes to what I'm listening to. I keep it very narrow. So if it comes to like rap or hip hop, like I do listen to pretty much just Kanye West. Yeah, that's what I tend to
Ah,
just listen to. And
ah,
I know like when it comes to people like that, you'll have people who are like, oh, you shouldn't listen to that stuff or whatever. And I will admit that like when it comes to mainstream musicians, you're going to come across them singing about subjects that we probably shouldn't be listening to. And so I'm not perfect with it, but for the most part, I'm particular with like what songs I might listen to, for instance. So but I keep it very narrow. There's even a local Canadian band I listen to, not much, but or at least not lately, but I've been big into them, which I saw them live too, and that was Deer Rouge, which is kind of like alternative rock. I'm gonna guess. I don't really know the subject. It's a vastly different genre.
okay.
So, but no, yeah, I would say
They're
I do
called
go down that rabbit hole.
Khmer Rouge, or what are they called?
Deer Rouge.
Deer like the animal?
Yeah, like
Reindeer?
or calling someone deer.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
not sure how they. Yeah, just calling someone deer. Yeah, that's about it. I
DEAR,
mean,
Deer Rouge. Okay. I'll check them
mhm,
out. Tomorrow I'm doing an episode all about prog rock because that's my big thing is progressive rock.
yeah.
So at 3 p.m. we're going to do an episode. I'm doing this episode with a friend of mine who happens to be
Okay.
a sedevacantist. So,
Okay,
but he's a
that'll
silly
be very
guy.
interesting.
He's a funny and silly guy. So we're gonna have fun.
Yeah, like I definitely. I mean, I could go down like creative rabbit holes of like what kind of music I would listen to. I'm definitely interested in some of the experimental stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, where it definitely has like a creative side.
yeah.
Like I mean, when I grew up, like with just the way I grew up, like my mom and whatnot was into like a lot of those types of people, David Bowie, Bjork, whatnot. So I was like, grew up listening to a lot of that stuff in that atmosphere. So as I grew up into like what kind of musicians I like, a lot of them are kind of like the creative
Quirky.
types, I would say, where there's like a layer or depth to their work. So,
Yeah, it's fun. I'm gonna have
mhm,
to. Eventually, I keep telling myself I have to get back into making compositions, electronic
yeah,
compositions, because it's fun. But I'm just busy. I work and I have my podcast and I have my wife and everything, so it's hard to find the time. And you've got your whole animal farm there in your room, keeping you busy, right?
yeah, yeah. I have so right now I have two pigeons at the moment.
No
So
way.
yeah, I mean I've had them since like June, but they were like babies. I hatched them, and now they're fully grown. They've been fully grown for a while. They grew up quick. So, but
Cute.
the only issue is they're a male and female, and the male is very aggressive and he bites me, and he'll like
Oh.
hit me with his wing because he's territorial over his woman. So um,
Uh,
there's a lot of videos where the pigeon are like you'll see a video, right, where the pigeon is so cute and is like cuddly with the person, the owner, but more than likely that's one pigeon a person has, and the pigeon is like that because it views you as its companion and mate. Whereas if you have two where they court over each other, the female is okay, but the male, yeah, I mean it is how it is. But I would say like I used to have rats. I think I've shared that with you
yeah.
back in the day when I had them. They don't live very long, like 3 years at most, typically. Um, and they've passed since then because I had them for a while. But pigeons can live up anywhere from like 10 to 20 years in captivity.
Oh.
So I'm okay having them. I mean, I've had them only like since June, but I might not keep them forever. I might give them to someone.
Oh,
So
can they live in the
they're a bit of
wild?
a hassle. Hmm?
Can they live in the wild? Or are they too domesticated?
Pigeons?
These
Uh,
particular
oh,
ones.
these ones, yeah, these ones I hatched from eggs, so it's imprint or whatever. I've imprinted them. They view me as their kind, so it might be difficult releasing them now. I would
Um,
probably just find like a person to sell them to, or like a breeder or someone who's interested. 'Cause I know there's a lot of people in that hobby where they like keep a bunch of pigeons. So if you know any pigeon keepers, let me know.
Yeah, well, my father-in-law used to keep a whole bunch of pigeons. I never got to see it, but he
Mm.
showed me pictures.
Yeah.
But it's a cool hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably tolerate it, but I have to just consider, like, I mean, I'm still getting used to it, so it's a new thing.
Do they smell?
Not if you just make sure that you keep them clean. You keep them clean. I would say that the rats smelt worse, way worse, and I would clean them. But yeah, yeah, just it's with any animal they can, but honestly, my cats smell worst, and so you just have to make sure you clean them. That's all.
Yeah.
And when I say clean them, I mean the cage, not the bird. So I mean
Okay.
you can put them in like a bath, like fill it with like low water, and they'll like shake themselves in it.
Uh,
But for that's how they bathe themselves. But for some reason, only the male does it. As long as I've had the female, I'll put her in there, and she just wants to fly out. And it's like I don't know what's up with that, but
wow. You're learning a lot. Do you have any books about pigeons?
no, no, just the intranet. It's Gen
Oh,
Z or
yeah, I
whatever.
forgot
Yeah.
you're Gen Z or whatever you are.
Hmm. Whatever I am,
Young kid.
2002.
You're an internet kid.
Mm-hmm.
No books for you. I do see some books behind
Oh
you though.
no.
I can see some books,
Oh
so
yeah, I do have a bit of a library in my room, but yeah, for the most part, a lot of it is just AI. It's just digital. It's just the way that the camera's framing it all. It's I'm using what is it? Open AI, Chat GPT, all that stuff. That's I'm not even real. I'm actually on a Go train, just speaking on my phone here. So that's
ah,
about it.
that's coming soon to a reality near you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You think it's
What
good? You think it's good that the technology is good?
AI?
AI, yeah, or is it neutral? It just depends how you
Well,
use
what
the
what would
tool.
your take? Would you see AI as ethical, or would you say that it's problematic?
Well, you know, I take the general stance that everything is ontologically good,
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
But when it comes to technology advancing and, society, Western civilization becoming more and more, um, industrial and technological, I kind of frown on that generally. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just don't like all the pollution and the ugliness of the cities and just the ugliness of human interaction because of the great machine that we're sort of trying to adapt to. I don't like that. It's not organic. It's not natural. I don't like it.
Well, yeah. I J.R.R. Tolkien. I think if you ever manage to get him on the podcast, which is probably unlikely, uh, he
Yeah.
he would agree with you. He would agree with you on that one. Um, I was watching a video. Apparently, he hated cars. That was a thing. He hated cars. He hated automobiles, and
Yeah. So do I. I
he
don't own one. I've never owned one.
I would say, like, I mean, I definitely engage with technology. I'm on technology at the moment, but
Yeah, so
I
am I.
definitely see the issue. Like a lot of it can act like an escapism from responsibility, and in that sense, it's like a form of nihilism. So it's that would be my main issue with it. It's sort of a Nietzschean critique, I suppose. Have you read what is it? Uh, the Unabomber Manifesto.
No.
No, I haven't either, but I know that's his worldview is like anti-tech largely. I
Oh.
need to actually I have to take time and read
How long
the
is it?
book, but huh?
Is it like a full size 200-page
Oh yeah,
document?
you know who I'm talking about?
The Unabomber, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he wrote a book. It's his famous work. It's I haven't read it though, but I it would be on this subject largely, so you know.
Is it free in PDF form?
Oh, it should be free. I just prefer a physical copy.
Ah. Here we go. Yeah, Unabomber Manifesto PDF.
Mhm.
So that's cool. I can download that and I can read it on my Kindle. I mean, I'm not averse to technology, obviously. I like reading on my Kindle rather than
Mhm.
accumulating thousands of books. Now
Yeah.
I have hundreds of books on my Kindle and it's embarrassing. I'm not going to be able to have enough life left in me to read them all, but
Well, yeah, I would also just say, like, what is technology, right? Because if you go to like our earliest stages, we are using tools to
Yeah.
work with stuff.
Yeah.
Like, is that technology? Like, what is
Yeah.
technology exactly? And so
Yeah.
I'm obviously not anti-technology, but
Yeah.
if you're talking about this sort of digital form where it's like we're escaping our world into this digital world, like that is maybe even gets into a bit of antichrist stuff where the catechism refers to the antichrist as being like giving a supposed solution to mankind, and it seems like, oh, it answers all our problems. And people always say, they always point at everything as being the antichrist, but it seems like this AI or sort of digital world singularity could be kind of what the catechism is sort of explaining in interpreting of what the Bible refers to as the antichrist, that it's this and the great deception, that is this solution to man. And yet it reverts into himself rather than to God, which it seems to be what the singularity is, where it just kind of transports your consciousness in itself somehow. So, and a lot of those people who are sort of in charge of this, I mean, they're very, very deliberate with what they're doing. Like, they're
Yeah.
knowledgeable on this stuff. They're very learned. I think I brought this up before, but like I'll listen to some of their talks and whatnot, and it's like they'll use very Nietzschean language. It's just bizarre. Like, it's like stuff's happening before your face, and it's like they'll say like the great claim that Friedrich Nietzsche made, which is God is dead, which I obviously don't interpret literally. I'm a Christian, but I would refer to it as, in a poetic sense, as referring to the loss of religion in society, which is bad and just a destructive nihilism, really. But they view that and want to create the Ubermensch, which they view as a sort of technological evolution in our species. And at the end, I just view it as like a Tower of Babel. Like, it's something that they're building
Yeah.
up to the heavens that will just collapse on itself.
Yeah.
They have such high hopes, and in their ambition, they're just at the lowest they could be, right? So,
Yeah. The problem is that you can't get wisdom out of a man-made program unless you yourself are putting the wisdom in, or other humans are putting the wisdom in. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if you're just saying, hey, let's scrape the whole internet and scrape all the books that have ever been written and sort of try to cobble together something that looks reasonable, and that's something that's taking into account many different points of view, and the most popular points of view, and that which seems to work pragmatically, then there is some value to it. But as long as we don't look to it as wisdom, because wisdom is a human thing, and like I said, we can convey wisdom through technology, and we can have a database of wisdom, but we're always going to need the human touch. And that's why the church is a living thing. It's a living body. We have the living magisterium. It's not just a Bible. It's not a dead, dusty old book. We already know that in the wrong hands, the Bible can be interpreted satanically. Satan used scripture in the desert against Jesus, right?
mhm.
So it's about keeping it real, keeping it humble, and having that human touch, because we're human, right? And so not submitting to some amalgamation of so-called wisdom and having it spoon-fed to us. It's artificial, and
Sure.
it's not alive,
Yeah, and back to what you were saying earlier, like with the way that we construct society on an architectural level and technological, it's like we compete with nature pretty much. Like, that's how we thrive. We have to devastate the land, push it forward in order for us to expand. And it's almost like a form of Gnosticism, where it's like the some of the Gnostic cults, which you see very alive today with like the New Age movements. It says that the body is nothing; it's just the soul. And
Yeah.
the original language that the Gnostics would use is that the soul is trapped in the body. The body and what's physical is a prison, and we need to escape to the spiritual. Um, and this is the blatantly antichrist. And now today's language is just saying, like, trying to emphasize that the body is just an illusion, reality is just a matrix, what's real is the spirit alone. And we, as Christians, we believe in the incarnation, that the spirit exists, the divine, the realm of God, right? But that God becomes man in the hypostatic union, so that you have the divine and human nature in the person of Christ. And so both the physical and spiritual matter to us in our faith. That's why we don't just pray to God. We have the what we do, but we have the use of iconography, the sacraments, physical things in our faith that's pointing us back to God. It's the language of the incarnation, and words kind of diminish it. It's a very deep mysticism of Christianity. You have to practice it. It's something in the heart that you just know. But the way that technology kind of works, or even just the way that our society is that sort of Gnostic framework where, okay, this is a prison, and what is the body? In this case, it's just kind of nature, it's the world, and the soul, it needs to escape. And so we build our architecture and in that compete with nature. And it's like you have two sides. One side says, okay, we have to literally live in nature, right? Like some of the First Nation tribes. And then the other side will say we have to literally just devastate it. And it's like, well, how could we have both where we're in harmony together, right? And that's also I would say is Jungian, like Carl Jung, the concept of like, you have the opposites, the anima and animus, the masculine and feminine personality, and even to go into like Taoism, you have the yin yang, chaos, order, what Jordan Peterson has wet dreams about. You have to have a balance, right? A balance of that stuff, and you need harmony to synchronize with that. And I might have shared this with you before. If not, I've talked about this before. But like the practice of the rosary, what is it? It's a physical thing, right? Like a rosary, you when you're praying it, you are reciting verbal prayers and
Did you make
having
that one?
mental images. Hmm?
Did you make that one? Did you
Oh,
make?
this one? No,
Yeah.
no, this is from Etsy. I could even send it to you. The only problem is that I've had a couple beads break, but I think that just because how much I've used this one. So, but I've made little knots to
uh,
replace where the beads are missing. So, kind of a
uh,
poetic thing, I suppose. But anyway, um, when you recite the rosary, you have verbal prayers. So that's literacy, words affecting the left hemisphere of the brain, and then you have mental images, visual imagination, basically, or you might be looking at a image before you, like an icon. So it's a visual representation that affects the right hemisphere, and so it's like that itself is creating a synchronization, a harmony between the two hemispheres of the mind. Um, which is a very deep subject of itself. And I'm kind of surprised that no one has really gone down that road either of when it comes to the brilliance of the rosary, because they'll talk about the psychology of it or the spirituality of it. But I find sort of the psychoanalysis of it very interesting. But that might just be me. So,
yeah.
but you need that harmony, and so I think that is where Christianity is vastly unique. And when I say Christianity, I'm not necessarily referring to Protestantism, like the Puritanism that you'll find in like a lot of the West today, but valid Christianity, where it's like actual apostolic Christianity, where it's historic, right? We are of a church where our bishops can be traced back to the apostles, and we have a sense of ritual, we have a sense of practice, and it engages all of our senses. And so we're not nihilists, we are engaging the full self to elevate to the highest as we can. And the point is that if you read the Old Testament, it's vastly about the fall of mankind. If you read the New Testament, it's much about the redemption. It's almost the same narrative that the Old Testament goes through, except it's upward than downward. Even the Tower of Babel, people are building upward to the top for their own sake, then it devastates down. And yet you have in the New Testament the apostles at the upper room, and that's seen as the Tower of Babel, but in redemption, they're at the upper room, and so that represents the Tower of Babel being redeemed. And this time they actually reached their goal of the Holy Spirit falling on them. So they actually reach God in that sense. And it's little details like that. But that's the concept of redemption. So I don't want to get too carried off from the subject here, but
It's
harmony,
pretty cool.
balance. We
It's
need
pretty
balance.
cool.
So
Yeah, I often think about war and divorce, just anything where people are being torn apart or hurting each other or taking each other to court or whatever. And how far that is from what God had intended for us when he put us in the Garden of Eden. Like, I mean, it's just so far, it is so perverted, it is so disgusting and shameful And I just wonder why people individually don't just say, well, hey, hold on, what's going on here? What am I involved in here? What is this conflict about? Why am I fighting my brothers, my sisters? And,
Mhm.
it's just like if we could all just pause, reflect, okay, what am I doing? What am I enabling? What am I perpetuating? Um, because we've got things heating up in the Middle East and, just tit for tat, blame, you can blame the other and
Mhm.
justify your
Oh yeah.
retribution and your vengeance. But what about vengeance is mine, says the Lord. What about that? Um, what about turning the other cheek? I don't know. It's just
Oh yeah.
it's tragic, because we have a God-given intelligence and free will. We could actually pause at the end of a long day and think about, what am I involved in? What am I perpetuating? It's not that hard, right? Why aren't more of us doing that and saying, hey, I'm not gonna make this big war machine continue rolling. I'm gonna opt out of this tragic momentum. Or do people just say, well, I'll opt out if everyone simultaneously agrees to opt out, but until then, it's like, if I'm not the one profiting from war, someone else is going to profit from war, and I'm going to go hungry. So I'm just going to keep profiting until we all agree that we're going to have peace. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think I brought this up before. Well, I don't know. It's been a while since I've been here. So, one of
Don't
one of
worry
our
about repeating
talks.
yourself. It's all right. It's all good.
Um, I kind of highlighted. I would expand on that subject. Is that uh, what do you read in the epistle? It's that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Our warfare, our battle, our struggle isn't against flesh and blood. What does that mean? It means war with ourselves. In some
Mhm.
sense, it's like we are at war with ourselves, but in another sense, it's not. In a certain sense, Israel versus Palestine or Ukraine versus Russia. It's not white versus black or Jew versus Muslim or Catholic versus Protestant. Uh, and if you go down like sort of like I guess I don't know like conspiracy theorists like they want to blame a subjective group, right? It's the Freemasons who control everything, or who else
Jesuits.
do they say?
Jesuits.
The Jesuits, the Jews, the New World Order, the World Economic Forum. And it's like I'm not ignorant either. I understand that geopolitics is real. It exists. It's not like it's not. I'm not saying it's just an you're just paranoid. It's imaginative thing. No, it's real. Geopolitical powers and competing powers exist. I understand that. Obviously, there's a reason why church authorities have been very nervous and outspoken on the subject of Freemasonry because there is such a power there and whatnot in these groups. I mean, you can listen to the talks that the World Economic Forum gives. They are very deliberate on how they want to have influence with their pushing their ideology onto Western civilization and onward. So I understand that, but I'm just saying ultimately, as an absolute, our warfare, our battle is not against this of flesh and blood because all these groups, including ourselves, we're all just fellow humans. And our true warfare is the serpent that wants to creep in to the crevices of the human heart and of the human mind to gain our influence. And so that can be ourselves, or when we view other humans in influence, these groups, for instance, that have power, that hold corruption, it's the serpent creeping into these little crevices, in this case, into their minds and hearts. And so, if we go back like when the Roman Empire was persecuting Christians, I mean, how did the Christians view the Roman Empire? I mean, it was the New World Order at that time. They viewed it practically as like the Antichrist, right? So what happened when you had Constantine, when he had that elaborate vision of Christ and he converted, and he didn't do it perfectly. The paganism still prevailed largely in Rome, but he at the best that he could converted the Roman Empire or the Roman powers to Christianity and making it a Christian state as best as he could, right? So it's like, what if tomorrow, all these Illuminati groups, you name who you want to name them as being, all of a sudden came to Christ the next day. Like it could happen. Like it could happen. You never know, right? And at the end of the day, it's not them, whoever you want to say them is. And again, I'm not being ignorant. Geopolitical politics is real. I understand that. Um, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, and because it is real, it is something important to talk about, to highlight. So I'm not against like political activist figures,
You
but
just said
at the
it
end of
is
the day,
real. You just said it is real, and that sounds like Israel. But anyway,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, it is real. uh, but ultimately, it's a spiritual warfare. So, I mean, that's just we have to like get absolute like what is good. Are we actually like are we relatives like relativists or whatever? Like, do we believe that everything's just relative and subjective? Like no, we believe there is an absolute, which is a good, and that's God. So whatever is evil is taking away what is good, right? Sin is choosing the lesser good than the absolute. I believe that would be
yeah,
Augustinian theology. So we have to sort of just get centered again and realize that our warfare is not against flesh and blood. Not saying it doesn't exist, but what is the fundamentals here? What's the fundamentals? What matters most is what I'm saying.
yeah. There's a philosophy called essentialism, which is a pragmatic philosophy that says, okay, let's evaluate what are my concerns. I've got many concerns. I got to brush my teeth in the morning. I got to eat, have shelter, like the basic concerns. And, those are immediate and ongoing. But you have other projects, this thing is due and I've got a deadline here at work and my wife's pregnant and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you can go to the really big picture stuff like who am I? What am I here for? What are the big goals? And so essentialism tries to always be aware of what's on your plate and eliminate what's not essential, all the things that can be
Yeah.
eliminated in a healthy and reasonable way, and just focus on those short, medium, and long term goals that are most essential so that we don't miss the boat. It's like kind of like Judaism today, where it's like they're really focused on God and, whatever, but they kind of forget that the whole point of Judaism was to usher in the Messiah, and when the Messiah came, they just pretended like, like nothing happened. It's like if they were to subscribe to essentialism and just stand back and look at their own history, they'd say, well, yeah, we were waiting for the Messiah, and here are the prophecies, and here they were fulfilled. So it's to not lose sight of what's most important. I guess that's what it comes down to with essentialism. And there are
Yeah.
non-Christians that are trying to practice this, and hopefully it'll bring them into Christianity.
Mm. I believe it's the Gospel of Matthew where Christ is saying not to worry over temporal matters such as your clothes,
Yeah,
what you're going to
food.
eat and wear. Obviously, you have to put your mind to the fact that you're putting clothes on. You can't forget to put clothes on in the morning before you go out to work or whatever. But ultimately, he's sort of presenting that ideal again because, like, if you have a set of values, you might have like social values, political values, and then religious, spiritual values, namely God. If we focus on political values as most do, it for the most part will fix the social values because it ranks over them. But you're not going to the highest. And if you go to the highest value, which is God, the way that hierarchy works, it should fix all the values below it. So, namely politics and social issues. So, and again, I mean, I'm not bashing on those who are political figures. I think I've brought this up before. As the body of Christ, this is an analogy you find in the New Testament. Some of us are the hands, some of us are the feet. We're all different parts of the body that of how Christ works in his church. So how does Christ work in politics? Well, there's going to have to be people who are political. How does Christ work in the churches? There's going to be people who need to be pastors, who need to be priests, right? And need to be teachers. And so, I think, again, it goes back to balance and not being weak or gullible to Gnosticism, where it's like, oh, it's just one or the other. The flesh is bad. We're a prison in it. We need to escape as just the spirit, or vice versa. Maybe naturalism is a reversal of that, where it's just the body is all that there is, and then the spirit is dead. And that's another like a heresy that's a reversed version of a former heresy. So, what is the ultimate balance, right? I'll leave it there.
Yeah, absolutely. The we are, um, you know, soul and body, just like the church is. The church And I often remind my Protestant guests on my podcast that, the church, and they can't deny that Christ built a church. That's the funny thing, because they love the Bible, right? It
Mm,
says right in the Bible that Christ
yeah.
built a church. So I remind them that, you can't deny Christ built a church. And the church, I like to remind them that the church is an extension of the incarnation. Christ is fully God, fully man. Well, so is his church, right?
Hmm.
It's not just a social club. It's not just an institution. It's not just this corrupt thing that gets made fun of in the mainstream media. It's not just that. It's also divine, And so I think if we lose sight of that, that
Mm.
the church is an extension of the incarnation, it's fully divine, fully human. And if we lose sight of the fact, as I often remind my Catholic guests, um, that the church is not just the church militant, because a lot of Catholics
Uh,
are laser focused on the messy stuff that's going on here below. They forget about the church suffering and the church triumphant. So I think it's important to keep our sights on Christ, and Christ is literally in the church triumphant, right?
yeah. And when I wasn't a Catholic and was exploring Christianity, I came on it from a very Protestant angle, a Protestant angle. And I would say that there's even a Gnosticism that has infiltrated there too, where you're saying that the church is just the spiritual body of believers.
Right.
There's nothing physical.
Yeah.
Well, that you're reiterating the Gnosticism that said that, oh, the spirit is trapped in the body or whatever, or the soul is. It's sort of the same thing, but you're looking at through a collective lens as the church. Again, the church in the Bible is called the body of Christ. Yes, as fellow believers, we make up the church, and it's called the body of Christ. Well, what is the body of Christ? What does the New Testament say again? That those who deny that Christ came in the flesh are of the Antichrist. So if you're denying that the church has some visible sight, something visible, you can see it, the church is visible. If you're in denial of such, that would be Antichrist, because you mentioned it, it's linked to the incarnation. How is the church visible on earth? Just through ourselves walking around professing our faith? Well, that's a very powerful instance. But I mean, if you read the Bible, there is an ecclesiology, a leadership. You have bishops, deacons, presbyters who would be priests. So, I mean, it's all right there. I mean, if you want to be of the church of the Bible, then look at the church that's in the Bible. There's bishops, there's presbyters or priests, there's deacons. Um, so, I mean, I know that some Protestant sects, you'll have a pastor who like declares himself as being a bishop or a deacon or
Uh,
whatever, and I'll hear that often. Like, there's this one pastor who I like some of his talks. I don't think he's terrible, but he's friends with like Oprah Winfrey, and he calls himself bishop, whatever his name is, right? Like, you have people like that, right? But it's like, well, what is a bishop? A bishop's not just a pastor at a grander scale, you know. Anyone could profess themselves as being a pastor or a teacher, right? But the apostles were real people who were set as leaders in the church, though their leadership was very different than the leadership in the world. That is what Christ declares to them in the gospel, right? They appoint bishops, and the bishops appoint more bishops. You have apostolic succession. Like, that is inarguable. That is historic. I mean, why does the Catholic Church exist today? Why is there apostolic churches around the world if there was no apostolic succession?
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, are we still in the week of Christian unity, or is that, I think that, I'm not sure how long it lasts, but I think we're in the middle
I'm not
of,
sure.
I think we're in that phase now of the church on our liturgical calendar where it's all about
Right.
Christian unity. And it's a very delicate question,
Yeah.
obviously, but I talk to a lot of Protestants on my podcast, and they're very friendly, and they always emphasize the fact that, well, if we can have dialogue and talk about common ground and be respectful, they seem to think that that is Christian unity. Well, it might be a step towards unity, but it's not. We're not united just because we can find common ground, right? That's not enough.
Well, it's a ripple effect towards that relativity and everything being subjective, where it's like you condition Christianity to being a mere relationship. I mean, that's a common phrase, is that Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? in some sense you could agree, in some sense you could disagree, right? Is Christianity a religion in itself? I'm not exactly sure, but I know it has a religion. If you mean religion referring to a rule of life as the word originally meant, it has a religion. Is it a religion itself? I'm not even going to go there. But conditioning it to a mere relationship, the word itself, relation, relative, yeah, everything becoming relative. Uh, if we could just, if we understood that we all accepted Christ, we had differences within our churches, but we all claim to love the Lord, so that's it. Let's just shake hands, and that's then. I will shake hands with my fellow Protestant friends, so I have no issue there. But like, we don't want to have a false unity either, and I think it's emphasized on what is the unity that we have as the church. And it would be St. Paul in the New Testament who would say that, we are one as the church. The body of Christ is one because we all take from the one bread, right? And that one bread is the one body. So that would refer to our liturgy, our worship of the Mass. When you have the bread as the living body of Christ. If I took a piece of bread and broke it and gave it to you and whoever was around, those are individual pieces of bread that we just all shared as individual members. But if this is the living body of one man, and I give you this piece and I share it amongst ourselves, then I'm not breaking up one body, but it's supernatural in the essence where each piece, every particle is in whole that one man. And so even though we all share what our eyes see, a different piece of bread, in actuality is the same man whole and equal in each of us. And so in that supernatural act, we are all one in a mystical sense as the church. And so what is false unity compared to true unity? And it would have to come down to the Eucharist. And I would say like Catholic apologetics is important, but even just valuing our apostolic tradition. Like, I would be happy if someone converted and let's say they joined the Syrian Church of the East, the Oriental Orthodox Church, or the Eastern Orthodox Church as compared to one of these various Protestant sects, because they still at least uphold that apostolic tradition. Now, again, I would say that, again, the degrees of false unity, I mean, there's many degrees to it, but what is true unity? And I don't think it exists within the realm of relativity. I mean, I'm not sure if you would agree or disagree with that take.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. The uh, the danger always with us humans is that we want to have our cake and eat it too, right? We want to remain attached to basically our sin. Like, I mean, that's just the bluntest way of putting it. It's just like, what is not of faith is sin, right? That which is not
Mm,
of faith is sin, and faith does not contradict faith. So the fact that we don't have Christian unity means that some of us are in a systematic or systemic state of sin relative to the one true religion. And I just want to reinforce the idea that in the Bible, Old Testament and New, there's a lot of talk about religion, true religion, false religion. And so yes, Christianity is a religion. I meet Christians who say that it's not a religion. I reject that. I shut that down. I just point to the Bible.
mhm.
It's a religion. Religion is good. Okay. And look at the saints. Like, we could pull up some very fantastic, very moving quotes by the saints talking about true religion. What is true religion? So yeah, we can't be ashamed of the idea of religion. Can we go too
Mhm.
far into the religiosity, the external manifestation, the whitewashed walls? Can we err on that side? Yeah, but we could also err, like you said, on the Gnostic side. So, we just need to strike a balance. We don't need to be
Yeah.
ashamed that we belong to a religion. I'm very proud to be religious. I'm proud to have a religion, and Christ built a church. There is a religion, and there is, because there is an economy of salvation. Right? if God wanted to, he could just snap his fingers and we could all be up in heaven with him. But we're not robots, we're not slaves, and there is no compulsion in religion. We have to love, and we have to love freely, and God's working with us. And the idea, what the whole idea of religion, true religion, is to cooperate with God, because he has something in operation, the economy of salvation, and we have to acknowledge that. I like to use the analogy of the ark. That's something that the early church fathers used, the Noah's ark. We have to
Hmm.
find the ark, get into the ark, and to get into the ark, you need to believe, right? So you need to have faith.
Right.
So that's what it's all about. And Christ said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." So this is a very it's it's there are a lot of things that are required of us, right? And that's our duty, and that's the challenge. And yes, we're confused. Yes, we're lost, and there are competing ideas. And within Catholicism, you can hear people on the right, people on the left, and bickering and schisms, and it can be very confusing. So
Right.
I sympathize. I sympathize with those who are raised Southern Baptist, and that's all they've ever known, and that's all their family and relatives are, and they think it's the best, and their preacher tells them that's the only way. And I sympathize with that. I don't want to just yank them out of their context and sort of throw them into a Catholic church without proper preparation, education, and spiritual integration into what is reality, what is ultimate reality. Because the one true church that Christ built, I'm sorry to say, it's not the Southern Baptist Church. It's not. It's obvious, beyond obvious, right?
Yeah. I mean, a similar saying would be like those who say it's about Jesus and not the church. But it's like I feel like that's a failure of understanding either Jesus or the
Well,
church,
Christ and
because
his
again,
church are one. Christ and his church
yeah,
are one. That's what I always say.
and the church is the body of Christ. So
Yep.
the church is Christ. It is Jesus, and Jesus is the church. They're inseparable. Um, that's what I would say to that, which you worded
For
well
sure.
too. I don't know if you want to carry it on to anywhere else,
No,
or
no.
if you want to go on where I was thinking.
Switch topics. Yeah.
Okay. You were bringing up earlier about sort of the controversies that have been going on.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I don't really necessarily think a lot of people, but just people who are like on the internet obsessively, right? Um, a lot of them will look at the controversies and they'll like feel like they're in how should I word this charitably? Like they almost like fall into near despair, kind of, right? About
Mm.
the church,
Mm.
and they'll kind of go down the rabbit hole. Let's say Eastern Orthodoxy, right? So now the truth is that in their hierarchy there is corruption there too. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
issues. We're all fallen man. We're all fallen Adam, in need of redemption. So there's going to be people in any hierarchy until we're in heaven, right, that are corrupt. So that's, you can't escape from that, right? And that's a form of cowardice. But when it comes to sort of like the apologetics on YouTube, we will have like sort of, I suppose, the Eastern Orthodox who will say like the church isn't, or the Roman Catholic Church is intrinsically problematic with having the Pope, and that the church has always been synodal. They'll say it's always been synodal and not so centralized, but decentralized, and that's attractive to some people, right? I had a conversation with someone before, and that was sort of what was attracted to him towards the Eastern Orthodox, was the decentralized system it presented. So what would you sort of say to that critique?
Well, I mean, there's got to be a visible head to the visible church, and Christ clearly left. And when he left, it said, "It's better that I go, because if I don't go, I'm not going to send the Holy Spirit to guide your church into all truth." So, I mean, it's just beyond obvious to me. Maybe because I have the gift of faith, it's always been beyond obvious to me that we have to have, the buck has to stop somewhere. And
Hmm.
if the Orthodox want to say, well, it's a flat hierarchy and the buck stops at the when all the bishops do an ecumenical council or whatever, you know, that it sounds reasonable enough. But if you look at the reality of it, I mean, first of all, that's not the tradition. If we look at the tradition of the church, it's like that's
Hmm.
not what happened, right? And another thing is that the Orthodox, they haven't really had an ecumenical council for
Right.
I don't know how long, right? And it's kind of embarrassing the last couple of times they've tried. So this is not to put anyone down, but it's just to say, like, I mean, if we look at the history, if we look at the tradition, if we look at the Bible, if we look at, the early church fathers, if we look at everything, it all points to the fact that Christ, in his economy of salvation, he made a visible head of his visible church. And it fits in, if, typologically, it fits in with, Christ and his counterpart. When Christ ascended, he's got a counterpart here below. It's his vicar. So I mean, it's just win 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 on our side, and a lot of what I think is a vain attempt to make something sound reasonable on the Orthodox side. It doesn't sound reasonable to me. If you scratch beyond the
Hmm.
surface.
How much experience do you have, I would say, like in the realm of the Eastern Orthodox Church? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think your wife is Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah, I've been to the Divine Liturgy. I love the music and everything about it, but it's just um, it's a beautiful part of the church. The only problem is that they're in schism, right? I mean, it's like
Right.
that's my only criticism is that they're in schism. It's just like, other than that, it's like wow, it seems a lot better in many ways, in terms of music, liturgy, and the sort of solemnity of the
Hmm.
liturgy. I mean, if you go to an average Novus Ordo versus an average TLM or Eastern Orthodox Divine Liturgy, there's just no
Right.
comparison.
Um, and I'm sure like from a Roman Catholic perspective, we would say that there's many Eastern churches, and
Yes.
what you call the Eastern Orthodox is really the Byzantine church. I suppose anyone could correct me if I'm wrong on that. Have you experienced like the Byzantine Rite Catholic Church?
Yeah, yeah. I've been here in Montreal. I've been to
All
the
right.
what's it called? The Melkite. There's a Melkite
Oh yeah,
one.
yeah.
I've been to one where they do everything in Aramaic.
Was that like
Um,
a Chaldean Catholic church or?
Chaldean, yeah,
Right, right.
Chaldean. I've been to a few different ones. And to me, I love the diversity, and
Oh, for sure.
that's the funny thing about the Catholic Church. And I take as my own all of these beautiful churches, particular churches that are in the Catholic Church, even if the ones that are in schism, I consider them mine. They're Catholic, they're just in error on some important issues concerning the Bishop of Rome. But it's mine. I'm proud. I'm proud of the Eastern
For
Orthodox
sure.
because I consider them mine. You know?
Yeah, like I mean, I've obviously have experienced, as I'm sure you have with the Latin Rite, as fellow Roman Catholics. I've experienced the Byzantine Rite too. At a Ukrainian Catholic church that I'm nearby, and
Okay.
more recently a Slovak Greek Catholic church, and they both
Oh,
celebrate the Byzantine Rite, so it's practically the same.
okay.
Just the way they sing it is different tones, but that's about it. But no, I did go to a Chaldean Catholic church recently,
Ah,
around New Year's, so that was quite beautiful. It was, I guess, like Aramaic or some sort of Syriac driven of it. I have to learn more about it, but it was definitely a beautiful experience. I mean, it was within a Roman Catholic church that they were allowing the Chaldean Catholics there to do their liturgy.
ah,
So it was a quite a unique experience there too. So first time for that too.
nice, nice.
Yeah, and the language too. It's very very different, right?
Yeah.
But it's beautiful though. It's like a real encounter, at least for the first time. I
I
mean,
have a question
experiencing it.
for you from Phil. My friend Phil made a joke, but I think it's profound because he said, "I'm very proud of my humility." Well, I want to talk about this because it's important for Catholics and Christians to understand that pride is not only a capital sin, it's like the sin, it's the sin of
Mm,
sins. But we can have pride. I can be proud to be Catholic. I can be proud to be Canadian, even though
yeah.
Canada's not perfect right now. Um, I want to talk about the fact that, humility does involve necessarily a certain amount of pride, which is good. It's not evil. It's not sinful. Can you talk about that and how we can get tripped up with a false humility, and get confused about disentangling the good from the bad when it comes to pride?
Well, I mean, what is pride? I mean, you could maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I would just say it's how you use the term, maybe. Like, pride is the capital sin in the sense that the word has been used, but in our modern use of the word, it we use it in the sense that more correctly you would use the word confidence, perhaps, or boastful. I'm not. Would you say that's right or wrong?
Well, I mean, let's say, your child is struggling in math, but they really make a good effort and finally they succeed, and then you say you're proud of them. There's nothing wrong with that pride that you
Oh
have.
yeah, yeah, and
So
that's
that's a sort of an appreciation of the value of
right.
character, the value of hard work, the value, whatever it is, appreciating something that's good. And it would be a false humility to say, "Oh no, no, don't be proud of your daughter because that's a sin." Like that's a
Oh
misinterpretation,
yeah,
misapplication.
and it's merciful because you're kind of uplifting those around you, right? So
Yeah, and even to be proud of
it's
yourself, even to be proud of yourself, like,
mhm,
I didn't feel like going to mass, but I just, by the grace of God, I just sort of kind of forced myself or whatever. Um, you could take a certain amount of pride in that, I think. I mean, I think
right.
that's what heaven is, when God crowns our merits, he's crowning his own gifts to us. So when we take pride in something, obviously, what do you have that you've not received? And if you've received it, why are you boasting about it? So, it's a delicate issue, but I think that, God is allowing us to cooperate with him. We can procreate with our spouse, and we can, take care of our family and these sorts of things, all by the grace of God. And so we can take a
And
certain amount of pride in that.
I think it would be Thomistic theology as well, that things that are deserving of praise, we ought to praise and give pride in.
By
The
justice,
way that
we
we,
owe it. In justice, we owe
yes,
that.
and I would say that that is sort of a righteous pride, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
So because you're taking pride in, let's say you have a statue of a figure who's the symbol, the pride of your nation, right? I don't really
Justin
think we have
Trudeau.
any. Uh, I was about to say I don't think we really have an equivalent as Canadians. I don't think we have an equivalent
Terry
for
Fox.
Canadians.
Terry Fox.
But yeah, I had actually did see the statue there, wherever they have the statue.
Kingston or something.
Yeah, when I was on my way to Montreal, a
Okay.
big road trip, and we stopped by there. It was actually accidental, which is funny enough. We accidentally stopped by the statue there, so but it was that was pretty cool.
I
It
got
made
to
a big
see him. I got
scene.
to see him actually. He passed by my high school when I
Oh
was
yeah,
in the 80s. I got to see him.
yeah,
Pretty
that's great.
cool.
Yeah, of course I didn't. I was not there
You were a
for
twinkle
a
in your
couple reasons.
father's eye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I would say on humility, that's something that I've been trying to, I suppose, search more, and it's very good for us too. But it's very different. It gets different when you actually encounter humility. Like, kind of for me, I felt like I'm going to kind of use mainstream terminology here. It's kind of equivalent of the ego death, kind of. I don't really use that term just because I don't use that term really. But ego death, everything you said as the ego of what you are, um,
Do
and I
you
don't think
carry
it
a do you carry a
literally,
yoga mat with you everywhere you go?
huh?
Do you carry the little yoga mat with you everywhere you go?
Oh no,
You
no,
don't do
no,
that?
not personally.
You've seen people doing that though.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the ego death, I think not literally, because in some sense I think it's a bit delusional that you cannot kill the ego. It's a part of your psychology. It's ingrained in your brain, right? But for the most part, I agree with um, what people are trying to emphasize, and I think if they were more correct, it would be humility is what they're trying to explain. But they don't want to sound Christian. They want to sound they want to sound smart and psychological and scientific. So they say ego death. Well, the ego is a thing. I've heard that reading from Freud and Carl Jung. So that's the ego death. Well, that's psychological, it's scientific, it's up to date, it's not superstitious, is what they would view it as being. But humility, I would say, to realize I'm just a sinner and God alone is holy, and to say that, to kind of soak in that, um, because like I can be caught in a mess, right? And I think that might be humility. And I've been Catholic, been in the Catholic Church for over 2 years, I would say, almost 3 years around that
Mm.
time. So I'm new, but I would say that in my experience, what humility has been just in that simple sentence: I'm just a sinner. God alone is holy.
Yeah, it's my favorite saint is, well, one of them is Saint Augustine, and I like how he sort of boils things down. And when it comes to, pride versus humility, or, true religion versus false religion, or, in the case of the city of God, it's the city of God versus the city of man. Um, you know, it really does boil down to where your heart is. What do you love? That's where your treasure is. And I say it very often on my podcast that there are two cities characterized by two loves: love of self unto contempt of God, love of God unto contempt of self. So when I think about humility, that's what I'm thinking about. And
Yeah,
when I think about pride, it's love of self unto contempt of God. And the love of self unto contempt of God will include, yeah, I love money, I love power, I love sex, I love food, I love travel, I love my family, I love my kids, I love, the world, basically. And it says in the Bible that friendship with the world is enmity with God.
right. So, um, like I don't want to go do too deep down in this rabbit hole, but this was something I was thinking of earlier, and it was just that passage. Because I'm remembering something that someone told me that they listen to like a lot of secular music, and I know we've spoken on this subject about listening to secular music before, but they brought up that passage before to me of like, well, friendship with the world is enmity with God. So okay, you're listening to worldly music. Okay, well, what's the stuff that's in the music, right? I mean, is it glorifying uh, degenerate stuff? Like it's just gross that you're letting these words even into your psyche. Um, like what is it exactly, right? Like what you're watching, the visual imagery. I'm bad with a lot of this stuff. I mean, again, I'm going to take self accountability here, but like when you look at things, at images, everything is an image that you perceive with the eyes, and with the eyes, it imprints itself onto your mind. So images are very profound. You need to be careful with all your visual senses, which is what I very appreciate much about I would say the Byzantine, right, Christianity,
Yeah.
especially with the use of iconography, all that stuff. We have it in the West as the Roman Catholics, but it's very much more emphasized in the Byzantine, right, Catholic Church and Eastern Christianity in general. It very emphasized on the fact that everything is an image, and what is that image going to elevate towards? And so it's like I've found the beauty in a lot of that sense of iconography, and I'm most divided too between Eastern slash Western Christian spirituality, of course, within Catholicism of the Byzantine and Latin rites. But I would also just say, like, to you, to what extent does that go of being in friendship with the world equals enmity with God, like in regards to like how we're supposed to live in life?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. I think it's important to counterbalance your intuition there with, you have your certain caution towards getting involved. Uh, we should counterbalance that also with what St. Paul says about eating meat that was offered up to idols. Like, I mean, if you're, I'm not saying that I'm strong or that I'm holy or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we Christians, we don't need to be fearful, as a lot of Protestants are, of, okay, dancing is no good, music is no good, and you know, even things like cigarettes, which are clearly not good for you. The Catholic position is a lot more moderate on these sorts of things. Alcohol, a lot of Protestants are very put a strong taboo on alcohol. So it's a looser relationship that we have in true Christianity than a lot of the sects will exaggerate. And I understand why. Just like the Jews, they exaggerate the law. They put a fence around the law so that they're less likely to get close enough to actually violating any of the real commandments. So I do understand that, but I like to err on the side of looseness, freedom, because Christ is all about freedom for me.
Yeah, I see that. So I guess maybe just not there a precaution of falling into superlocity about this, I would say.
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah, when I listen to secular music, and I do, I enjoy it, and I allow myself to enjoy it because I say to the extent that it's music, it's good, and to the
right,
extent that, and I think also I think about the ontological goodness about the humans that made the music, even the money hungry executives that are
right,
pushing crappy music on society, and in the record industries or whatever. I think about the human being, like God loves this human being, Christ died for this human being, and I can't condemn anyone that's still alive to hell. And even those who have died, the church doesn't dare to condemn them, except maybe Judas, with one
right,
possible exception. But I think about the ontological goodness, and I think about my own heart. What are my intentions? And I know what my intentions are. If a cute little pop song that no one would think is damaging comes on the radio, but it has suggestive language in it that in my heart triggers me to let in the demons of lust, then I have to say no. I have to change the channel. That has happened to me, right? But I can listen to what some people might consider really obnoxious music, but it's not
right,
triggering me. It's not triggering me, and so I can appreciate whatever is good about it, and it's not a near occasion of sin for me. Whereas some cute little Lionel Richie song or something like that, it seems completely innocuous. To me, it might be an occasion of sin. So you just
right.
have to
Oh
know
yeah,
yourself. You have to know your heart, and you have to know what your intentions are.
yeah. I like my pop music too. Yeah, because I mean I grew up let's see, well, I was born in 2002, so I definitely grew up in
Oh,
like around the 2010s. So that's when all the mainstream
uh,
pop hits came out.
such
And so
as,
I
such
I never
as, name
really
some, name some.
oh well, I mean you know who they are, the 2010s, Taylor Swift, Lady
Okay,
Gaga, Katy
okay,
Perry,
okay,
the names
okay,
that everyone knows.
okay, okay.
I never really got into them, but a few years ago I decided to like look back at music I heard as a child. So
And you
I'm
liked it
not really
more?
into, huh?
Did you like it on a re-listen? Did you like it more?
Oh, I like Lady Gaga songs. I
Okay.
like the Gaga songs. What does Kanye say? I like some of the Gaga songs. I'm not into Katy Perry, but there's one song I like. I don't remember it because I listened to it like whenever I did. That's the thing. Like sometimes I'll listen to artists just like see what are they about, and like oh I like that song, and then I just kind of forget what song that was. I'm not gonna sit through all their songs to
Right,
find that one song
right,
again.
right.
But no, I'm fine with Kanye West, and I'm fine with Dear Rouge, a local Canadian band, and whatever my mom puts on, which might be like Pink Floyd or whatever she listens to, which is fine. I suppose that's how it goes, right? So
That's funny. So we've gone an hour. I hope you're gonna book a spot like faster, quicker, sooner than, because
yeah,
that was like September, October, November, December, January. That was like 4 months. So
I
try
had
to
a
try to
I
sneak in a
had
bit faster.
a thing here.
Do it,
I
do
have
it.
a little
Checklist.
prop.
Oh,
This is the thing. I have a prop here, but
okay,
the way that this joke was going to work is I don't even know how it was supposed to work or how I
okay,
was supposed to roll it out. Basically, I was going to put this hat on,
okay.
and I was gonna say like how I'm basically Canadian or whatever. I don't know where I was going with
What
this.
is the hat?
It's a Raptors hat. Got the
Oh, let
Raptors
me show me the
logo.
logo on it. Show me the logo there. Okay, that's a basketball.
I guess I'm not into sports, but I was gonna basically wear it because they're a Toronto sports thing, right? So I was gonna wear it and just be like, hey, something about being Canadian. I really have no idea where I was going with that.
There was no opportunity. I didn't give you the segue there. I didn't give you the lead up. I should have.
I don't know where I would go with that, but I threw it out there now, so I did
How'd you
it.
get the hat?
I've just always had it. I've always had it. I have that. I've always had that hat. I have a work hat from my dad's,
Uh,
but I'm not gonna wear it because I don't want to dox where my dad lived or my dad works where
yeah,
he works
yeah,
because
yeah,
well it's a company.
yeah.
I have an Alex Jones hat because I thought that was funny.
Ah, I've got a
I,
MAGA
I
hat.
actually
I've got a Make America Great Again hat.
yeah.
I'm hoping that Trump wins in 2024 so I can
Did I
bring
put
my
a
hat out of the.
my Alex Jones hat? I got
Yeah,
it here.
show me.
Yeah. I
Ah,
I
ah,
always liked this hat when I was like back when Alex Jones
cool.
was like big on YouTube. like whenever that was, I was young. Yeah, I was back in high school, and 2016, that era where everything was going crazy,
Yeah.
and I liked that hat. And then years later, like maybe 2 years ago or whatever, I was like, you know what? I think it'd be funny if I got that hat now, and I got it. I'm pretty sure I even wore it in my video, my one and only video on my YouTube channel, but it's blurred out because well, the subject of the hat and the shirt too. I blurred it out, but there's one like little second where it glitches out and you see it, and someone commented about it in my comments. So my one and only YouTube video there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, are you gonna make more content, or are you just gonna come and chat to me?
Well, yeah, but I don't think what subjects, right? I mean, I have my one and only video, which is why I'm Roman Catholic and not Protestant. You know, funny enough, I have an alternate version of that same video, like a director's cut. I have a Snyder's cut of that video. It's the same thing, but extra stuff, extra
Uh,
content that went down. You see my pet rats. I had my rats. They were alive at the time.
oh,
A little montage of my pets at the time.
very cool.
Yes, the Snyder cut. I mean, I might put that out sometime, but for that, I mean, I'm not sure. I would like to put more content out, but I'm kind of stuck. Like, I don't even know where to go. I
Well,
don't know
hold on,
what to
hold on,
start off.
hold on, hold on. Okay, every time I talk to you, you always have topics that you bring up. I don't have to like fish for it. You have things to talk about. So I think if you just turn the camera on, I'm not encouraging you to do this, but I mean, I think if you just made yourself sort of like a talking head, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
turn on the camera and start talking. You've got your psychology, your psychological angle on religion. You've got, different angles that you seem to emphasize a lot. Defense of the church and the nature of the church. And it seems like there's just stuff that you have in your head always ready to like
right.
it's like gushing out of you because it means a lot to you. It's very sincere.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think you
It's
could do
that.
that. I think you could do that.
Yeah, I could do that. You're right.
Or you could just come and chat to me and then I get all your content,
Yeah,
all your genius.
doing intel work for your podcast.
Well, I was thinking today is like you're like kind of like a loose co-host, like
Yeah,
part-time uh, co-host or whatever.
right, right, right.
Right, 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 right,
My
right.
my pigeon's going a bit.
Okay, I'll let you get back to your pigeons there.
Yeah,
And but yeah, try to book it a little bit sooner so I don't have to wait 4 months for my
sure.
co-host to come
Yeah,
back on. And
I'll try not to leave it hanging for another 4 months or
oh
whatever.
yeah, and
But
I wanted to let you know that I'm cutting back on the podcast in the late spring and then summer because
oh
I
yeah,
want to
all
spend
right.
more time with my wife and go biking and do some trips and stuff like that. So yeah, try to book it definitely before May,
Yeah,
or in the fall.
I'll probably be doing all that stuff, taking hikes with my wife and whatnot. Just
Yeah.
the casual stuff.
I can't wait. I can't wait for you to meet Mrs. Wright. With
Mm-hmm.
and her pigeons and your pigeons can make babies together and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
That would be cool. So, any final thoughts? I'll give you the floor and you can end the show with the final thought.
Um, I'll just like say like I have a YouTube channel which some of you may have heard of. It's just my name, Brandon Danilition on YouTube. It's just my name, and I have one video, my one and only video on my
How
YouTube
many views does
channel.
it have? How many views does it have?
I mean it kind
One
of
view?
stopped getting views.
Just me?
I think it might have just reached like 9 last night or whatever. No, no, no. It's almost at 10K, which is okay. Which is
Wow, that's way more than I get.
well, you do well sometimes. I mean, it's my one and only video. It's a pretty easy to go to subject to.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you before we part ways here. Did you manage to watch any of my guests and did any of them make any impression on you?
Um. Oh yeah. I mean, since last time. Let's see. Um, yeah, but here's the thing: I don't remember their names.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
There's one guy that I don't think I finished it, but he's I would say he's a pretty well known YouTuber. He has a YouTube channel. He has long hair.
Oh, Sticks.
Esoteric.
Sticks.
Yeah, that there you go. I've always known about him, but I've never delved into his content. So, but I know who he is. So that um uh another guy who's like a celebrity.
Okay.
I'm not gonna know his name if you say it even. Okay.
Celebrity and like he's a Catholic or
I don't know. He probably maybe he looks like he's into sports. I don't know.
oh,
I
Boss
can't.
Rutan, maybe Boss Rutan.
I'm gonna say yes, but I'm not in that realm, so I don't even know if you told me it right. So,
Okay.
but no, yeah, I've been checking it out here, and
Okay.
and have you been checking out my show lately?
Yeah, well, of that 10 of those 10,000 views, mine are probably 8,000 of those views are mine. So
Oh yeah, well,
I've
thank you.
memorized the whole skit. Like I got the hat placement just right, fuzzed out most of the
Yeah,
time, and it flashes on, and it's
yeah. I remember I was out in the field in one of the scenes, and it was raining, but like very lightly. It was raining though, but that's where I'm out with my umbrella. So I remember when I put the video out, I was like I was so impressed. I was so impressed by my craft. Maybe that's the pride you were talking
pride,
about earlier.
pride. We
I was
should
so
have a parade
proud
for
of
you. We should have
this
a parade for
video.
you. Shut down downtown Toronto, and we'll have a pride parade for you for your video.
Oh yeah, yeah, all for me. Hey, yeah. And
That'd be
instead of the rainbow, what just like a flag of like my face stretched out, so it fills up the space on the flag, right?
great to see you, my friend. Excellent chatting with you as always, and
Hmm.
let's do it again soon, okay?
Okay,
And don't
right.
forget to
Bye
pray
bye.
for me. Don't forget to pray for me.
Yes, pray for me and all those listening. Right.
Yes. God bless you, my brother.
Bless.
We'll talk soon. Bye bye.